Hi everyone, how are you doing today? I hope that you've had a wonderful week. As you can see, Warsaw is very autumnal and autumnal in a grey, miserable kind of way. So I thought I'd lighten up my commute today by recording this video. So I've got some news and it occurs to me, I don't really share that many updates or bits of news or things that are kind of new in my life, but I thought this is a fairly pertinent update given what I'm going to be talking about today in this video. So yesterday was the first day that I went to work in a skirt. Now, you might hear this little piece of news and your reaction might fall into one of three camps. You might be all giddy and excited and be like, ooh, wow, that sounds amazing. You must be super happy and proud, which, yeah, I am. Or you might say, Andy, that barely counts as news. Why are you telling me this? This is boring. You're boring me. Which, fair, I suppose. For a lot of people, it barely constitutes any kind of update whatsoever. And for some of you, inevitably, the presumably hypocritical folk out there who'll accuse me of wearing women and stealing women's identity and all that sort of stuff. So those, I would expect, are the three main reactions to this piece of news. And I think your reaction tells a lot to me about your acceptance of me as a transgender person. And just to give you a little kind of insight as to how I was received at work, two people made a comment about my outfit. One person was incredibly complimentary and said that it was great because it was all right, it was pretty good, I was very happy with it. One person just sort of commented on the fact that I was looking good, which was interesting, but everybody else just got on with the day. They treated me as I always am treated, and they communicated with me as normal. Now those people, I would say, are incredibly accepting of me. They're not singling me out for special treatment. They're not patronizing me. That's not what I'm saying these people were doing when they were saying that I looked good, by the way, but potentially patronizing by overpraising. Anyway, so I wanted to talk a bit today about acceptance and support. Now, in my line of work, it's a kind of a often corporate-y type job. And we encounter all sorts of different management-y, corporate-y type things. And one of the things that I encountered a little while ago was this little grid about how to organize your work, how to organize your time. And it basically asked you to put all of your work within a kind of a grid system where you're rating work in terms of its importance and its urgency. And then by looking at these things, you can determine if a lot of your work is falling into one of these particular categories. And does that mean that you're overworked, or are you working in particular on particular things which are maybe a waste of your time? I can look at it and see that a lot of my work is neither urgent nor important. So it's like, okay, I can just ditch all of that and focus my work on what is actually useful and relevant to my job. And similarly, I was wondering if support and acceptance could be plotted along the same kind of lines. Now, I know that they're not entirely distinct and separate from each other. It's quite difficult to be a supporter without also being accepting, and vice versa. You're very likely to get somebody who's going to lie here or here on the grid, where they're all one thing and none of the other. But I think most people, they're going to fall somewhere within that little grid system of acceptance versus support. And first I'll just define what I mean by support. I mean kind of actively engaged in my transition, asking me questions, poking me further, let's say, encouraging me to do a little bit more and push me outside of my comfort zone. These are the people that are actively part of my life along this journey, to whatever extent that might be. And acceptance are people who just accept me as a trans person and treat me in a way that I would like them to treat me. My favourite bridge on my commute, where I get to laugh at all of the people stuck in the traffic. Still stuck. They're probably still there from the last video I made weeks ago, pointing and laughing at them. Anyway, so just to exemplify that idea a little bit, so let's think about the three possible reactions to my news about wearing a skirt at work. So for those excited and giddy, assuming that they reach out and share that excitement and giddiness with me, they're going to rate quite highly in terms of support and acceptance, because they are congratulating me and praising me on making this step and recognizing the importance of this step to me as a person, but also they're accepting because they accept the value in that particular step. As I said, the people who are kind of meh and don't really care, I would say that's a fairly accepting kind of behavior, to be honest. I mean, that's the sort of reaction you'd expect to see from anybody who shares that piece of news. So I'd actually rate that quite highly in terms of acceptance. In terms of support, hard to say. I guess it depends on the person and what else they've communicated with me in the past, but I would say it's not particularly low because they've been so accepting. I would see that as some kind of support in of itself. Oh, there's a more professional film crew over there filming something with a big microphone and a camera and stuff, and here's me with my tiny camera. Let's see if I could get them. They're over there somewhere. And so as for those people who will criticize and complain about my choice of outfit last time, they're obviously low on both support and acceptance, potentially even going into negative figures depending on their level of criticism and the sorts of things that they do about it. So it's a scale where you might place individuals. And is this useful? So I was pondering this myself because I had this idea about how I could kind of label certain, I guess, people, which isn't maybe that healthy, I guess, but also recognizing that this isn't a fixed scale. People can move up and down along that scale as they go. Some people might become more accepting, some people might become less accepting, depending on how much online content they're consuming and where they're getting that content from. And also maybe as they learn more about me as a person, perhaps that also improves their understanding and their acceptance of what I'm doing and why. Anyway, so why is this useful? So it helped me to really tease out some of my frustrations with some people in my life that I would have hoped would be better. And it helped me to try to identify what exactly it is that I need from them. Is it more support or is it more acceptance? And I think for me, of those two categories, acceptance is probably more important. Like, I've got supporters in my life, they're great, I love them, and it's really wonderful to have them in my life. But acceptance, I think, is a much deeper and more meaningful idea, and it taps into their behaviors and how they react to me and around me. And I think that's really important. I do need supporters, I need to be challenged, I need to be pushed out of my comfort zone. So sometimes I need to be questioned and I need to be told that actually what I'm doing on this particular day is a bit silly. So that's fine, that's supportive behavior, even though it's maybe criticizing some of the things that I'm doing. It's from a position of, this is maybe not in your best interest in the long run. So I was able to look at a few individuals and think, well, maybe they're supportive in words, but in terms of their actions, they're not being as accepting as they could be. And so that means that if I sit down with them and have a conversation about what I'd like them to do differently, I can focus on specific areas rather than broad kind of conversations about I want you to do more X, Y, Z, and not really being able to determine why that is. So for me, I think it's quite a useful way to think about where there are gaps and how to maybe move people along that little scale a little bit more. And the thing is, I'm not expecting people to all kind of gravitate towards the accepting and supporting sphere. I think I would like to think I'm a bit more realistic than that. Hopefully people will be more to the positive end than the negative, but I don't expect everybody to be able, I guess is the word I'd use here, to get there. And what does it mean to be in that kind of perfect spot? How do I see a kind of utopian vision of that relationship. Well, I suppose my mind often goes to this conversation that I observed when I was on the beach in the UK in the summer just gone. You can see some of the videos that I've made about my adventures there. And I remember watching this conversation between what I assumed was a mother and a daughter. I couldn't hear what they were saying. All I could see was the way that they interacted with each other, the way that they looked at each other, the way that they communicated with such what I imagine to be honesty and love and compassion, easy smiles between each other, gentle touches to offer that support where it was needed. I don't know what they were talking about. It could have been anything, and in a way it doesn't really matter. What did matter was obviously both of them cherished that relationship they had with each other, and that conversation right there, nobody else and nothing else mattered. It was all about being there together. And I think about that conversation a lot, because when I was looking at that, I was kind of in a bit of a turbulent space after spending a bit of time with my family, and I was kind of thinking about the things that I've talked about before, about what exactly is it that I feel I'm lacking from them. Is it support? Is it acceptance? And I remember just watching that conversation and thinking, that's the level of relationship that I would like to have with them, where it's just easy, simple, trusting and loving. And as I said, I'd like to think that I'm realistic enough to know that that kind of relationship takes a lot of time and patience and effort and energy. And I'm not going to get to that space with all of my relationships. I might be lucky enough to get there with maybe one or two, to be honest. And I think that would be enough. But I think I'm close with a couple of people. Carolina, for example, she's incredibly supportive and she's incredibly accepting of who I am, which is wonderful. And a couple of my other friends as well, Kate D and Martina, I'll give you some shout outs as well if you watch these videos. I don't think I could be here without the support and love of people like that. But maybe there's a lot of other people in my life that could be doing a bit better, and hopefully now I've got a kind of a schema to help me to get to that place. And one more thing that I just want to address before I move on is, I don't know, a few people, when they hear this request of respect and acceptance, often retort that we're asking people to do something that is otherwise impossible. How can you accept trans people to be who they say they are? And for me, that's a little bit problematic. I'm not asking for anything more than to be treated like any other person, and it's quite worrying that a lot of people seem to think that this is quite a difficult request for them to adhere to. As I've said, what I preferred the most about when my colleagues saw me in my skirts, they just got on with their days, and that's all I really asked, to be honest. No special treatment, nothing more than that, just to be treated like a person. Anyway, so that's what's been bouncing around in my head over the last week. I don't know what you think. Do you think this is a reasonable model? Do you think this makes sense? What do you think about acceptance and about, what's the word I'm looking for? Acceptance and support. Yes. Why don't you tell me about it in the comments section below? Thank you very much to everybody who liked and subscribed from the last video. I really appreciate it. And there were some really nice conversations as well. So I hope to continue this theme in this video as well. Otherwise, all the best. Have a great week and I'll see you soon.